Con Stathopoulos and Josh Phegan come together in an incredible podcast, Grow, Scale, Master.
An energetic approach to drive progress, master skills, build strengths and put the strategy back into rapid business and personal success.
Backed by real-world experience in rapid scaling to playing the long-term game of business, it's the story of all the lessons learned on the journey to mastery.
Be inspired, renew your energy and chase the future with Grow, Scale, Master.
Con, whoever learns the fastest lives.
Yeah,
so this is
very true. It's primal, right?
It's kind of an interesting thing about like being a fast learner. And like I mean to say, there are points, and you would have seen this in your sales management career when you were more broader as opposed to a specific market.
Yeah.
And seeing that there are some sections where like people are really hungry for growth and development.
Yep.
And then there's like other sections of the world where it just doesn't seem to be that way.
Yeah.
And like whether or not it's old money, whether or not it's gifted, whether or not it's a community thing, whether or not it's just a persona about the way they market or whatever the story is. Do you think that's a true assessment, that literally that not everyone is as eager and as energetic to want to learn and to want to grow?
Yeah, 100%. I think, everyone's on their own adventure.
Yes.
But I think the biggest thing here is that a lot of people aren't really dialed into getting better.
Yes.
And I think that that's the key. So the gap between where you are and where you want to be is usually only 5%.
Yes.
So my big belief is that we have 95% of all the skills that we've acquired to be successful in real estate.
Yes.
Yet 80% of the results come from 20% of the top talent.
Yeah.
Now, the masters,
yes,
right, they tap into that 5%, which is finesse.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that are turning up to training sessions, sitting in the front row, taking notes, role playing, using the theory, listening to podcasts, getting, reading books, e-newsletters, and not just on real estate stuff. They're looking at business as at a global level.
Yes.
And they're looking about how they can make experiences better.
Yes.
But 100%, I think that's the biggest thing, is that people are either interested. That's why they keep coming back to Blueprint and they keep dialing into training sessions, but then you've got to be committed to it, right?
And I think this whole conversation, like how do you learn, is like an interesting thing, because like a lot of people don't necessarily know how they learn.
Yeah.
How do you like learn? If you genuinely think about the last set of like skills that you acquire.
I'm playing golf.
Yes.
I just thought I'd throw that in there.
Yes.
So I'm learning a new skill. Okay. Now, this is a really interesting point. My son's doing his HSC, right? And that's all about annotating notes and reviewing and practice exams and, all that type of stuff. So there is a method and there is science behind it. And I'm very keen to hear about how you do it, because you're very learned. But for me, it's repetition. So, I make a decision that I want to go and learn how to play golf. I've got to find a coach. First thing I did was hire a coach, and then make sure. Don't laugh, you're smiling at me. Hey, listen,
there's a lot of coaching work in
There's
that.
there's a lot of coaching to be done, but the beautiful thing about it is, Josh, it's humbling. Because I don't have a skill set that's associated with playing golf.
Yes.
So now I'm on the acquisition of knowledge. I'm trying to find out a process and a path, and it's about the repetition of, listening, reading, watching, doing.
Yes.
That's for me. Well, how do you learn?
Well, I think that the funny thing about it is that like when you're thinking about like learning, like I'm a big one for give me a problem and then force me to try to find out a way to solve it. So when I kind of like I get really competitive with myself to go, I don't know how to do this.
Like unblocking the Dyson vacuum cleaner, and then you look,
probably a little further than that.
No, I get it.
I've already worked that out.
Yeah.
But like the lesson is that like I like problems and case studies of a problem, and how would you do that? And so I go on the quest of the challenge to work out the way to do it.
Give me like a practical, like a real world thing like that. So
how do I export data and get that into my iPhone?
Gotcha.
So how do I get that CSV file? How do I get that into a format that I can then suck it into my eye contacts? And so like literally I'm going to work out how to go and do that.
Yeah.
And I'll Google it a bit and I'll AI it a bit, or I'll just actually think through it a bit and say, okay, how would I do that?
Yeah.
And often and this is the interesting thing, because like when you first start out in life, you learn to read for like some sort of form of entertainment. So Hungry Caterpillar, when mum and dad were reading you through that, it was entertainment.
Yeah.
And then you kind of like read for basic skills. So when you think about it at school, you had to read the commerce chapter or whatever about how supply and demand worked.
Yep.
And then later on, you start to get into this level of, okay, great, I want to read to get to a level of mastery. So like literally I'm really thinking through that skill set development and how do I become the best in the world at that? And I think that this is the thing is that a lot of people take problems, but they don't necessarily really think about how to go to solve those problems.
Yes.
And like if you can learn how to become a great problem solver, you're worth your weight in gold.
100%
So
agree.
there's a great old school saying is that like problem finders are cheap, but solution makers are worth their weight in gold.
Yeah. And I think today, given 2026, the accessibility of data, knowledge, tutorials, video, podcast content, there's no excuse not to really find an answer to the problem that you're trying to solve, right?
Yeah, but where I think that the problem is that literally about like what are you actually exposed to? So, like I'm going to say, there are some podcasts that sit out in the world that are 4 to 5 hours long every week that are released.
Yes.
I can't do those. I can't do that unless it's highly engaging. But,
Yes.
and then there's others that are like 15 minutes, which is the perfect length. But the basic
Like
idea here is that like really understanding, so like what are you actually exposed to? So there's an old school thing that like if you go to a conference or you go to a training session or you go to a coaching session, like you are committing that in the course of that next 30 minutes, 1 hour or day, I'm just going to tune my mind into learning how to become the best at this. And there's going to be something that's going to really come out. But what you've now got is that like if you're not paying attention, then you've actually got distractions eating away at you. And so this is like literally there's a thing about like there's a lot of devices now that will do AI summary of notes that will record audio that you can go back and listen to.
It's
you
not
can
the
take
same,
a photo with your screen.
Mate, I've tried them all. It's not the same.
But yeah, you take a pen and a piece of paper and you write down a particular thing.
Yeah.
Like literally, and you write it down, then it makes it a big difference. And I learned to read a little differently in that I would read, but when I read with a highlighter. So if I like a word or a sentence or a quote or a paragraph, I'll actually highlight that
For reference?
But then what I'll then do is then
annotate the highlighted bit.
Oh, that's a strong word. What I then do is I go and retype it.
Yeah.
And so then I've actually then got it.
Yeah.
And then I reread that.
Yeah.
And so the basic idea is read, highlight, retype, reread. And if I do that 3 times, like literally those 3 things in a 72-hour period, then the retention's like super high. And sometimes like what I believe is a natural thought has actually been something that I've read a year ago or 2 years ago that's actually really sunk in. And so I start to think about like becoming a fast learner is about saying, okay, how would we do this? So better proposition questions, better hypotheticals, better case studies is actually the best way to read. So if I said to you, okay, great, what is the biggest problem that I've got? Well, then I'm going to take it to Amazon.com. I'm going to go and buy a book on it. I'm going to go and read it. But I'm going to spend that 1, 2, 3, 4 hours in terms of investment in doing that. And like a lot of the learning actually happens through the doing and through the failure and the redoing and then the teaching of it.
I just listened to a podcast by a lady called Louisa Nicola.
Oh, yeah.
And she runs a podcast called the Neuro Neuro Experience.
Yes.
She's a brain scientist.
Oh, yeah.
And she spoke about how to achieve more in 2026. What you just said then about the repetition within 72 hours, that is absolutely critical in terms of those neural pathways, retaining and storing that information and being able to reclaim it. You should listen to it. Again, 27 minutes, very short podcast, and it grabbed my attention, but you're absolutely spot on.
But there's something about the mechanical of a hand and a pen and a piece of paper and actually recording a note.
Yeah.
And like I take digital notes, I've done photos, I've tried a remarkable, I've done all of that sort of stuff. And I still keep coming back to that when something's critical, I write it down. And like at the end of a period of time, you'll see me throw out my notepad and people are like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I do the same.
But it's already done. And I've already processed that and I've moved on from that. But I've got a set of systems where I record like summaries of books or key things that I actually want to go back to for when they are important to go and read.
Do you know what I reckon though, Josh? I reckon that because of the rapid advancement of technology, AI in particular. So now I don't need to read a book. I can get an AI summary. I don't need to sit there for 4 hours listening to a podcast or a YouTube tutorial. I can just put that into an AI thing and it will spit out the key points or a 23-minute podcast that's been generated.
Yeah.
The thing that I'm noticing is the power of focus.
Yeah.
So do not disturb. Switch your notifications off.
Yes.
Don't be kind of half interested. It's like watching, Netflix and you're also on Instagram.
Yes.
which one wins?
Yes.
Neither wins.
Yes.
All they're doing is rotting your brain and your attention span.
Yes.
I think it comes really down to having a formula that works for you.
Yeah.
Right? And that's a really good one. Read, highlight, retype, reread, and the 72-hour rule of retention.
Yeah.
But you got to be focused.
And I think this is, you've got to become obsessive.
Yeah.
So like literally, okay, great. What are the next 5 key skills that I've got to go and learn? And then what are the next 5 key skills I've got to go and teach someone? Because if I've got to teach Con, this is how you set up the podcast here, and this is how you press the record button. And then I make you then go and do it. And so and that's kind of that whole thing, is that really making sure that people are in that position to go and get to a position and say, hey, I want to become a great learner, but I got to turn my mind on. And the problem is that you talk to you more than anyone else.
Yes.
And I think that we're now in these digital loops of open up the email, go to the website, read the news, check Instagram, a message break, go back to Slack, literally over and over and over, maybe 100 times a day. But yet the ability to just focus and say, could I just change that one word? And listening to how you actually do an open for inspection callback, or listening to how you give feedback to someone, or listening how you go to present that. And
or have your coach look at the blind spots and goes, hey man, you're a great listing agent, but your days on market, market's 28, you're 45.
Yes.
We might have a vendor management or a pricing thing here. Let's work on that. You need to be aware.
And I think the other thing too is that learning's actually hard. It's going to challenge your thoughts. It's going to challenge your ideals. Not everything's going to come easy to you. And so from that point of view, you've got to realize that literally if you're caught up in this sugar hit of everything has to be entertaining, else I'm not going to be involved, you won't learn because you actually have to be challenged. And I look at stuff and go, how did I not know that?
Yeah.
Yeah, but if I can learn that, then all of a sudden there's a skill set.
So you've got to learn how to learn.
Yeah, well, I'm learning on motorbikes as an example. We went on an adventure motorbike ride. I've never done that before. Normally I've done a lot of road stuff. The biggest thing, I had to learn how to rock the bike to get it to stand up.
Oh, yeah, you told me about that. Yeah.
And
otherwise it would tip over.
Yeah, well, no, I couldn't get it to stand up.
Oh, vertically?
Yeah, because I didn't have enough weight to push the bike up.
Right.
But I learned how to do it.
We need to get you in the gym,
Josh. Come on, bro.
Experiences that rapidly shaped you.
One of the big things, I had a really early mentor, and he said, the best thing that you can ever do is just have no politics. If it's to be, it's up to me. Make a decision to just go and do things. And what I learned very, very quickly, never say a bad thing about anyone. It just and that whole idea here is that that's where politics and stories and rumor mills start, and it comes back to bite you. And I just be a great human being, and you're going to have so many people around you. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty
just
simple.
stay in that space.
Yeah.
But I think that we all inadvertently can fall into a trap where someone says, "Oh, what do you think about that person?" "Oh, not for me," or "I'm not sure." Yeah,
I don't know them well enough. Or whatever.
I wouldn't know well enough to be able to give you an opinion, but I just think that learning to have a no politics environment inside of a business is really, really important.
Yeah, one idea that's rapidly shaping me at the moment, it's so basic. I reread Atomic Habits and I bought the workbook.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just that 1% better.
Yes.
The level of incremental gains. If you can just focus on today.
Yes.
Today's Monday, we're recording this, so we've got buyer callbacks, vendor callbacks, just listed, just sold as they happen, right?
Yeah.
Pipeline sellers, letting them know about numbers through, etc. So just focus on today, focus on that one conversation, that one appointment, and that one outcome.
Yeah.
And if you just did that every single day and you just keep stacking, that 1%, I'm just a little bit better today than what I was yesterday, and so on and so forth, you'll end up winning.
Something that's changing your view.
Con, I really just think about that whole video and social content piece and watching the Netflix attempt at buying Hollywood.
Oh, yeah.
And when
Warner Brothers, wasn't it?
Yeah, and when you start to have a look at that, it's mate, the big screen's been replaced by the small screen, and it's no longer, I didn't know how to say this correctly, it's no longer like the Tom Cruise, but it's almost like the girl next door, but I thought I can't say that. But it's like the local is becoming the star.
Yeah.
Because you're seeing that person is now doing their drum thing, whatever it is that you're into.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how much the world has gone. So now you've got a chance. You can actually maintain and you can really dominate in that video space. But geez, you've got to be really clear about how you want to be presented and what's going to be timeless.
Yes.
And so steer away from the trend of the day and focus on actually really understanding where your brand sits to play. And less is more, but making sure that what you produce is seriously good.
I completely agree with that. And also be careful of the information that you're consuming and the channel and in the way it's being delivered to you.
Yes.
Because you might not be getting the right view, whether that's news, politics, something about a celebrity. It's exactly the
Nutrition,
same. Yeah,
all of it.
stuff.
Yeah.